died at his home in Cambridge.
In 2013, our very own Tim Muffet spoke to him about his life.
Given how hard it is for you to communicate, you mentioned in the film how sometimes when people are chatting, your thoughts drift off into things like how the universe began. Do you think in some ways your disability has made you a better scientist?
I must admit, I do tend to drift off to thinking about physics or black holes when I get left behind in the conversation. In fact, my disability has been a help in a way. It has freed me from teaching or sitting on boring committees, and given me more time to think and do research. Theoretical physics is one of the few fields in which being disabled is no handicap. It's all in the mind. I am very proud that I have been able to contribute to our understanding of the universe.
It's a brilliant man and a brilliant mind. We're joined now by Nick Goldman, a molecular biologist who studied maths at the University of Cambridge when Professor Hawking was there. Good morning to you. And also cosmologist Sean Carroll, who joins us from the United States as well. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen, this morning. Nick, we'll come to you first of all. I mean, his contribution to what we know about the world around us is hard to fathom, isn't it?
It literally is hard to fathom. I mean, it was just amazing what he could teach us by using maths and using his mind.
And, I mean, obviously we only learned this morning, but he had just a huge impact on so many different things, didn't he?
He was very influential. I was a student in Cambridge in the early 1980s, and he was sort of becoming a star then. And I think, you know, for people who are maths students, it's amazing and inspirational to see anyone do such far-reaching work, and to see someone with his disabilities able to do that is somehow even more amazing.
And we were saying this morning that at the age of 22, he was told that it may at best had a few years to live with motor neurone disease. So just wondering, you know, his death announced overnight, is it a shock, or is it sort of something which I suppose we've been expecting for a while in a strange way?
It's both things, exactly. On one hand, you know, everyone expected him not to live so long, and it was kind of a miracle that he was still around and still working. And then once you get over that hurdle of thinking that, then you think he's going to live forever, don't you? And it's amazing, you know, now it's a shock when he doesn't live forever.
Yes, exactly. Let's talk to you, Sean Carroll, if we could. Just talk to us about how you knew him and his the influence that he had.
Well, right. My kind of physics that I do for research is very similar to what Stephen did, and he was the master, so everyone knew him very well. I met him on various occasions. The very first time I met him was at a physics conference where we went to a scotch tasting. We tasted single malt scotches. There's a bunch of physicists after dinner. And there's Stephen Hawking. You know, he's not going to say, oh, no, you know, I have these medical conditions, I can't participate with everyone else. His attitude toward life was he was going to participate to the absolute fullest. And I think that helped him in his science. He made an enormous impact on what we do.
And you talked a little bit about him there. He's clearly, and from what you're saying, had a very, very good sense of humour as well, didn't he?
Absolutely. You know, he was... I'd like to say he was the most stubborn person I've ever met. That was a big part of his personality. He wanted things his own way. He got them more often than not. And he leavened it with this amazing sense of humor. You heard it in the clip you already played. You know, he was always cracking jokes of one sort or another. And it took him a long time just to make a sentence. So you could tell how important it was to him that some of those sentences be wisecracks, not just serious pronouncements from on high.
And Sean, in terms of his influence on all of us, really, there aren't many theoretical physicists who are household names and remembered and well known around the world.
Well, there are none. I mean, in the United States, we regularly do these surveys of Americans and say, name a living scientist. And Stephen Hawking is the only person who most people in the United States can name as a living scientist. So that shows how much of a loss it is that he's now finally passed away.
Nick, I want to just pick up that point with you because for you two, clearly academics, clearly enthralled by the subject, but he brought that kind of thing to vast amounts of people, didn't he?
He did. It's just extraordinary. And I remember a very good piece of advice that he gave all of us was not to put all the equations in the book. And as a practicing scientist, I remember that every time I prepare a presentation or speak to people. I think, do they want to see the equations? And of course, there are circumstances where they do, and there's a lot of circumstances where they don't. And we do well to remember that.
What I also love is that his book, Brief History of Time, is many people are willing to admit that they just have it, never read it, but it's on the shelf because almost by process of osmosis, you feel like you're gaining in intelligence just by having it on the shelf.
That's right. Definitely, I kind of read my copy. I've definitely turned every page.
I did actually read it, Sean. I imagine I did. I pride myself on that in some ways. Sean, you know that the impact it is. We can't really underestimate it, can we?
Well, we can't. And one of the amazing things is that among science communicators, among people who become very well known for sharing the passion of science with the general public, Stephen Hawking was also absolutely a world-class physicist. He has contributed more to our understanding of gravity, the most important force in our everyday lives, than anyone since Albert Einstein. His discovery that black holes evaporate is still probably the number one thing that physicists like myself spend their time thinking about. The very last paper I wrote was about Hawking radiation and black holes.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Sean. And just briefly, Nick, you weren't here to talk about Stephen Hawking. It's breaking news. I'm sorry to have to talk to you about it in some ways, but we wanted you to talk about DNA and a breakthrough, weren't we? Just give us a brief summary, if you would.
Repurposing the chemical DNA to store any digital information, not just in living cells, to be the hard disk drive of life.
Right. Okay.
That's the shortest explanation of something which I'm sure we could talk about for hours on end. But thank you so much.
Bring the Lego in later to show you how it works.
Excellent. Thank you both very much indeed. Thank you so much. And it's really very much from that tone of that conversation a celebration of an extraordinary life, actually.
Yeah, and so many sort of people coming and getting in contact, and many comments about Professor Stephen Hawking as well. I just want to read you this one from NASA. They say, remembering Stephen Hawking, a renowned physicist and ambassador of science, his theories unlocked a universe of possibilities. And I've just lost the rest of it. Hold it. Possibilities, and we and the world are exploring. May you keep flying like Superman in microgravity, as you told us all many times.
More on that throughout the programme, of course. Let's talk about something that happened yesterday. Philip Hammond declared himself to be feeling positively Tigger-like as he delivered his spring statement yesterday.